Good morning. Hi. So I'm LAURIE GRISCOM, and I brought with me Lisa Warnock, and we're going to talk to you about events and conferencing today. And we're going to talk about some general concepts just to create an awareness so that as you're either planning events or you're sitting on committees or you're attending events, you have a good sense of kind of what went behind and what should go behind the planning of events. Can I take the clicker? Thank you.
Should be all set.
Okay, so I'm just going to start by telling you a little bit about our office. So our office actually has two major functions. We oversee the campus center. We want to create an inclusive, inviting environment for the campus community. And then we have the responsibility of the events world and everything that goes into creating safe events that are scheduled in an efficient way. And so from the event services world, we handle obviously scheduling of resources and facilities. We handle contracts for rental groups that are using our facilities when we're not using them, when the institution's not using them. We help with on-campus marketing, and we also have a robust student employment program. And then from the campus center world, we're involved with operations. So we serve as a venue manager. So we have obviously folks that are in the building like the SASE operations for dining and retail. So we don't oversee those, but we're responsible for the maintenance of connecting plant management with the common areas of the spaces. We do student programming, and then again, another robust student employment program. Organizationally, we fall under the Division of Student Affairs, which may be different from other campus models you may have seen, but this works really well for us here at Stockton because we put the students first and the institution first. And specifically, we fall under the Engagement and Community Development strategic area under Student Affairs. This is your fun fact for the day. The building is 154,000 square feet. And so you see a list of responsibilities that we have at the bottom of the slide, like the information desk and the building management. In addition, we've got the programming, so the Get-Centered programs, our grad send-off programs, the Path Yearbook. The building was really designed to be the centralized location for the campus. So we say hello to prospective students and families with the admissions office, and then we send our students off through the Career Center. And while they're here, all their years in between, hopefully they're engaged in the programs that are offered at the campus center and utilizing the services that were conveniently located in the campus center for them. This is just a quick slide to talk a little bit more about what we do with student programming. And then I have for you, as we transition over to talk about the event services world, this is just kind of a new postcard teaser that we created. So we'll just kind of pass those along. So our office serves as sort of the umbrella that oversees all of the facilities and resources, really for the entire university. And in order to do that, we work with our partners who are venue managers at all the different sites that Stockton has in the region. And we help to create business practices and systems that the institution uses to make sure that we are scheduling efficiently. And so you'll notice we've got, we're marketing the different areas that folks can actually reserve facilities for. And so that's a new brochure for us. And just to kind of give you a sense, we, on a day-to-day basis, are a little bit more involved with specifically what happens here on the Galloway campus. So I just want to get a sense, we've thrown out some numbers earlier today. When you think about, how much demand on our facilities that we have on the Galloway campus, in addition to the regularly scheduled classes, so all of those meetings and rehearsals and performances and fashion shows and lectures, what do you think the demand on our facilities might look like in a year here on the Galloway campus? How many bookings do you think we've processed? Does anyone want to throw out a number?
27,000?
27,000. Oh, you're actually pretty close. So we're over 21,000. Usually when I ask that question for students, I'll get a 75. And I'll say, oh gosh. So yeah, we're over 21,000 facility bookings. And so what that means is that's a lot of demand on our space. It's a lot of coordination to make sure that we're scheduling efficiently and that events are going off without a hitch. And so in order to do that, we operate on a centralized scheduling model. So what that means is that the request comes into our office, and then we work on behalf of the client or the sponsor or the host to coordinate all the support services that are needed for that event. So we have business practices set up with plant management. So we will issue the school dude work order for you. You don't need to do that if your request is tied in any way to an event. We'll do that for you. We work very closely with production services. So we will trigger the work order for production services. Now you can expect a follow-up call if your technical needs are advanced and complex, because they truly are the experts and we do want to do a handoff. But we will initiate and trigger that initially for you. The same goes with ITS, campus police, parking, and then you'll notice I have catering in red. So with this centralized model, we're not 100% one-stop shop because we don't take your menu orders. We don't do your catering for you. Chartwell's is the contracted food service provider, so they're really the expert on the services they can provide and their pricing. But what we do is we meet with them regularly to make sure that the orders that they have match the reservations and setups that we have. So we sort of do a handoff in that regard. The requests come into our office in a variety of different formats. We've really tried to cater to the customer and the style that works best for them. At least historically, that's what we've done. So some groups like to use a form, which is out on our website, and for student affairs particularly, that form has worked really well. So it's just a reminder of the types of information to give us with the request. In some cases, we schedule a planning meeting if it's a really complex event and we need to talk through strategies and options. So we may schedule a planning meeting. And in other cases, it's as simple as just putting an email into our general email account. And then from there, that gets routed to the appropriate scheduler. So you can actually put in a Kramer Hall reservation to the general account. We'll just forward that on to our friends and our venue managers over at Kramer Hall. Or in some cases, if it's for the Galloway campus, I have different coordinators in my office that, based on who the client is, they work more regularly with certain schedulers. So then we kind of route those out. So you really have 3 different mechanisms for submitting a request. And that's currently how we're operating. We do have an online system that we are configuring to also be another option for folks to actually submit a request online. So we're still in the configuration phase with that. That's a little bit more complex because when we get to the student clubs and organizations, we've got several layers of approvals. So the setting up of rules has been a little bit more complicated. So, but just know that that's coming. So when the information comes in, the event coordinator in the office will generate work orders, and many of the work orders will include diagrams with instructions. So we do that on your behalf. And so we work with lots of event sponsors. They can be internal sponsors, so your typical clubs and organizations, institutional business. And as we work with those sponsors, we do have a whole list of considerations that we work through in order to make sure that we're in compliance with established business practices. So we do help to give some advisement to the sponsors. We consider ourselves as sort of the helper. So it's not our program, it's your program, so we tend to map out options for you to think about. We say that we're in the options business, okay? And with that, we will give additional resources and tap into our other partners on campus as needed. I did want to mention that under the considerations, you probably have seen some correspondence from Valerie Hayes recently regarding co-sponsoring with an external group. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that if you do partner with an off-campus community group, state agency, for-profit, nonprofit, you may need to go through an additional step, which is a requirement with the state. This isn't really like a Stockton thing. This is a state of New Jersey thing as a state institution, where we need to document what that partnership looks like. So, perhaps we are partnering and then the outside organization is getting a full waiver on the use of our facilities. So that is an additional step, and we will work with Valerie Hayes to make sure that we are in compliance with that process. So that's new. So bear with us as we work through that, because I think we've only done one so far. Okay. And then, of course, we work with the external sponsors with the community rentals. And with that process, I basically have one individual, Lindsay Bettages, who works primarily with our community partners, so we tend to route most of those inquiries in that direction. And we, do keep in mind whether or not the event is a fundraising event. We have to be careful because we're a state institution, so we have to be careful that we're not giving away the house when the beneficiary is going to be someone other than the institution. So there are all kinds of things that we have on our radar that we're checking. So I tell you that because no information is too little. Just tell us the whole scope of what you're doing so we can look out for you in the institution, okay? This is just a slide on general tips. So we do follow a specific procedure that helps us to understand the priorities and how space is scheduled. So you can kind of see those outlined in the bullet points. And then based on what the space is, there are also some other business practices that come into play. And that's based on experience that we've had. It's based on how those facilities operate in the larger scope of the institution. And we work very closely with those venue managers to look out for what we know to be the common business practices for scheduling space. So for instance, when we're scheduling classrooms, we know that the institution for academic scheduling is a high priority. And so for that reason, we make sure that all of the classes are placed and that we do not overlay any events until the class schedule is solid and all of the faculty moves for the first 2 weeks of the semester have been worked out. And so there are pockets of time that we know we can get into classrooms that are not standard meeting times. So those times could be Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday. They are also during the open modules on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4:30 until 6 p.m. We pretty much have, free reign to schedule as needed for the institution and for the students. Meeting space and event space is in high demand, I will be honest with you. We actually did an analysis of the event room and meeting room 5 and the Board of Trustees room in the campus center. So those are the most popular event spaces. And when we looked in a full given year to see if there were any dates that were just completely black, where the rooms sat empty and nothing was happening, I think we found maybe 3 dates that were during the regular time frame, so not when we were closed during winter break. So our facilities are in such high demand, so we really sort of play this puzzle piece game in trying to meet the needs of the institution and all the meetings and events that are happening. So many times we are using similar setups and we're tweaking times and just getting really creative with how to make everything fit. So please, I'm just going to say, please be patient with us. We get really creative. And we know that you all need to do business. And so, again, that's why I say we're in the options business. So we'll lay out, what the options are for you all to choose what's the best match. So just wanted to talk very quickly about Chartwell's dining services. So Chartwell's is the contracted food service provider. Specifically here on the Galloway campus, they have first right of refusal, and they have a whole range of services that they can provide. So there's really no reason why you should need to go to another caterer and ask, Chartwell's for permission to do that. But there is a process that's in place if there's some really extenuating circumstance. There is a process in place. The other venues off campus, though, have more flexibility to go with off-campus caterers. With Atlantic City, I will say, though, that since the venue has very limited prep space for an outside caterer, it's actually to your advantage to use Chartwell's because they've got access to the prep space that they need to cater the event, and they also have access to their extra equipment and ingredients. And so if for some reason all of a sudden you have an influx of extra guests, they have a way of very quickly adjusting to that. If you go with an outside caterer, you run the risk of not being able to kind of adjust the service as you go. So I just kind of put that out there. And I also wanted to mention with that, the alcohol permit that Chartwell's has is for beer and wine. And so they would be the caterer that can provide those services for you. And so that's an extra contracted service through Chartwell's. And then finally, with each event that we schedule, we are always cognizant of parking. And we always work with the client to make sure that either they send the link out to their participants so that they can sign up for a guest pass for that day, or in some cases we can even make arrangements for bulk guest passes, or if additional parking is needed, like say in Atlantic City, there are other options. So we work directly with parking and transportation on that. But those are all things that we will talk through in the planning process, particularly with really large events. We too do a quick risk management assessment with each event that comes in. And so these bullet points are just some general factors that come into play when we are assessing risk for events. And so most cases, we are in a position where we can talk things through and mitigate and reduce the risk. That's always the best case scenario, and we can still have the event and we just tweak it a little bit. And we work directly with risk management on that. In cases like our rentals, we actually have the client submit to us insurance, so it covers the state of New Jersey and the institution. So in that case, we're actually transferring some of that risk. They take the responsibility on. But of course, in all cases, we tweak so that we create the most safest environment possible. And we don't really ever want to be in a position where we're just taking on the risk and not doing what we need to do to create a safe environment. So. The students sometimes will get tripped up on the movie rights, so we have to educate them on public movie rights, and so they can't just, back in the day we used to say go to Blockbuster and rent a video and want to put it in the campus center theater, but they can't even use their Netflix account because that would be in viewing in a public setting, and that's not what that's intended for. So for the campus center movie night series, for instance, we show pre-release movies and we actually purchase the rights, and it's about $900 every time to show a movie. So yeah, we purchase the rights, so we show it twice. When we're working with clients, if a client indicates that they are hosting an event and they're designing an event where the audience is primarily made up of minors, so there could be minors attending, or their staff that they're recruiting to come and work the event are minors, then immediately the protection of minors procedure becomes a topic for us. And we have a whole resource available to us here on the website. And the procedure covers all of these particular topics. And so I'm not talking about when the Performing Arts Center hosts Frankenstein and a family comes and they bring their children with them. Okay, in that case, they're under the care of their guardian or their parent. So that's not the scenario I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about open house where we just invite the general public and they're coming with guardians and parents. What I'm talking about here is where we are actually designing, for instance, like a camp. And our audience is primarily made up of minors. And so it's really important for us that we make sure that we inform the sponsor and the host about what they need to do to create a safe environment. And so this procedure has been established. It includes minimum standards, and so in some cases there are actually better standards of preventative measures. And so they're certainly welcome to implement a higher level of standards, but this is a minimum set, and it covers topics like duty to report, other preventative measures, how to address medical and emergency situations, and there are some forms, resources, and training materials on the website. And if your department is hosting one of these kinds of events, there are some requirements about staffing, and so that's the point that's made here about an authorized adult, which will actually be somebody who goes through a background check. And then there will also be trained assistants. And so this is just kind of your reminder. As soon as you hear minors, then we're going to lean on this set of procedures. With each event, of course, it's important for us to create a welcoming, accessible environment. And so we ask the sponsors to include a statement on all of their marketing materials, encouraging folks to just notify our office if they need special accommodations. And so what we do then is we work with the setup and the support service providers here on campus to make sure that we can accommodate those guests, the needs of those guests. And in the case for some events like commencement and the Hughes Center, they automatically will schedule sign language interpreters just because based on the nature of the audience and because they want to provide that service. And so that's sort of an automatic. But please don't assume that that's always going to be a service. If you know or would like to have that service available, please let us know and we will connect with the outside company that the institution contracts for those sign language interpreting services. I would just like to mention about accommodations. We do not have a stash of wheelchairs that people can reserve in advance and take out for the day. What we do have, however, are wheelchairs, for instance, in the campus center, so that if there was an event and we needed access to one very quickly to address a situation, we have the resource. And that wheelchair is inspected annually so that we are in compliance and we don't have a liability issue. But we're not in a position where we can let people take it out for their personal use. This is just a reminder that if you're hosting an event and you have a guest speaker coming or you have a contracted service coming to campus, perhaps it's a party rental company, it's a DJ, that there are forms and contracts that need to be filled out, and in many cases, insurance is actually collected from those vendors as well. And then the green arrow is just pointing to the contract form template that our office and the regional off-campus sites use when folks are renting our facilities. We do that for you and for them. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, who's going to talk about marketing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Warnock, like Laurie said earlier. I've worked with most of you in this room. My main audience as a coordinator in our office is with our faculty, staff, and non-academic or non-student affairs offices in most of our academic schools. So as you can see, we assist in a lot of things, as Laurie already talked about, and another one that we help with is marketing your event. So through student affairs, we have multiple options that you can use to promote your event. The Osprey Hub, flyers and posters, which you can drop to our office with specific numbers for how we will post on the main campus and then in the residential areas. We also have our web calendar. Is that a link? I'm okay here. I just use this. Our web calendar and the student digest. We have our TVs that are around campus that you've seen, and also the LED sign as you're coming into campus on Vera King Ferris. There's other options that are non-student affairs related that you could also take advantage of with our social media, press releases, news media, and the Stockton homepage. Those are through University Relations and Marketing. They have a whole left side option on their website where you can get to their forms and request those services. And then there's a few additional. We have the Argo newspaper, the WLFR radio station, and the portal announcements, which you can see once you log into your Go portal. I'm just going to click on this real quick. Maybe. Maybe not. Okay. I think we're frozen. Yep.
I would say restart the PowerPoint.
Yeah, just the mouse is giving me some trouble.
Yeah, the mouse is.
I can just get my papers.
Outside of the meeting rooms in the conference center, there are those screens. Sure. Yep. And what do they mean?
So Catherine is referring to the room viewers that are outside of many of the classrooms and meeting spaces. Some of the newer spaces are getting installed with the room viewers. So those are schedules that are pulling directly from our scheduling software, and they're indicating what is scheduled in the room. So you can sort of see where if you were just going to drop into a space, and primarily we've been promoting this with the students because many times they just want to drop in to do a quick study group. And so they can see very quickly if there's a half-hour window before the next meeting. And so they're live, they're pulling directly from the scheduling software. Okay.
All right, we're back up and running. So this is our event services webpage. If you just type event services into the main Stockton page, you will come to our website. And on the left-hand navigation, you can see the forms and resources link. You would click that. That would then take you to the forms and resources that we have in our office. The arrow is pointing to the web calendar and the TV LED form, which allows you to put in your request to have your event posted on those two specific areas. It's a really nice form that's recently been redone and very easy to submit. So if you don't mention that when you send an email or put your form in, this is another way that you can get your events on those two promotions. Our TV LED announcements, as I mentioned before, are the big LED screens you see when you're coming into campus and the TVs that you see in the different buildings. We do have a priority order that we run those different types of events and signs and information, leading with our emergencies. Obviously, if we're closed or snow or something of that nature, that will override anything else that is running on the screens and the TV LEDs. Any institutional impact, parking lot directions, and then major events. And then you will obviously see the events that people ask for them to be running on there as well. But that is the priority in which we run different types of information. And then we have our TVs and the kiosks, which have the institutional connection. And the kiosks are the big poles that you see in the academic spine with all the flyers that are posted on them. So that's what we were referring to with dropping off 18 posters. Our university web calendar, if you just go to the top right corner of the Stockton webpage, you'll see calendar. You can click on that and it brings you to our newly enhanced calendar that's online. That's really much easier and loads a lot quicker than the old one, if anyone was familiar with that. And you can see everything that is happening. You can choose different options on the, does this one work maybe? No? Over here, we have different sections that you can pick that you can narrow down what you're looking for. You can pick a certain date, a month, a day, however you want to do it. This is also pretty much live when something is entered from our scheduling system. It does take a few minutes to update, so if you call me and then go directly to the calendar, you probably won't see it immediately, but it does update pretty quickly, so it's very accurate to what we are scheduling in our office. When you click on an event, this is where it will take you for more detailed information. If you have an image that you want to highlight your event, please send that to us so that we can include it, so you can have a pretty info on it. There's so many more options now that you can hyperlink your event, you can add it to your own calendar, you can forward it to your friends, you can set up reminders. So it's very user-friendly and allows you to do a multitude of different things rather than just seeing it on the web calendar. If you do want to check availability, you can do that right from the web calendar too by clicking on the check availability icon that's on the right-hand side of the screen. That will then take you to the grid, which is where we schedule into 5 Live. So when you're looking for availability, this is where we will steer you to, because it's very easy to see what is open, where you can have something if you're in need for a space. And we just ask you, when you're looking at this availability grid, that you see an event here where it's in dark, and then you can see the different color shadeds on the sides. That just shows you the time that that event is taking up the entire time in those colors. So you might only see the event on the web calendar from 4 to 6, but when you come into our availability grid, you'll see that it's actually 9 to 7 because it needs that space to hold their setups, to get ready for their event, etc. So this is why we direct you to this, because it gives you a better idea of actually what the availability looks like, as opposed to the calendar where it's just showing you the actual hours of the event. As Laurie mentioned earlier, we do ask you to just consider times that are non-peak, when we have the open module on Tuesday, Thursday, weekends after 3:30 on Fridays. And again, some of our spaces require venue manager approval, for instance, using any of the gyms or specific, mostly like our RHU rooms where it's a dance room or the piano room, things of that nature, where we have to work with that group to get you access to the space.
Just want to mention
Yeah.
real fast before you advance. So the arrow is just indicating that there is a drop-down menu. So the spaces are organized in other types of spaces. So if you just wanted to see performance spaces or Atlantic City, there are different views that you can take a look at.
Yeah.
And then when we go to online scheduling, you'll be able to actually click into a box that you see as an available time frame, and it will open up the form.
To request it. And I think it automatically directs to Galloway meeting room, so this is what you'll
Yep,
see.
that's the default.
Which is what most people are looking for, those spaces that we have listed. This is our staff in our office. So as Laurie talked about the different types of events that come into our office, they get routed to different staff in our office, specifically the events, which would be with me, Mary Kate, Gina, or Lindsay, which you see over here. So Mary Kate would handle our student events. We have Lindsay that works with our outside organizations in commencement and our summer groups. Gina does our student affairs groups, and then I do our non-student affairs groups. So you'll be working with one of the four of us on whatever you request, depending on the nature of the event. Anything else to add to this slide?
Just that, so this is just a snapshot of the staff in our office, but really in order to have all of these events happening on campus, it's really a joint effort with our service providers and
Yes.
venue managers. So that's the only way that we get to pull this off.